Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where each week I invite a panel of experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual businesses and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. So if you enjoy the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And before I introduce the panel, I'd like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwoods. Thank you very much, guys. Anyway, so let's get on with it. First of all, I'd like to introduce Jon McGinty, CEO of Gloucester City Council, budget of £14 million to 200 employees. We've got Chris Price, senior partner and a family lawyer of Tayntons Solicitors, who are celebrating 165 years today. Turnover of 3.8 million and 60 staff. New to the show is Simon Hewer from Hewer FM, Managing Director of Hewer FM. Turnover of 15 million and over 140 staff. And finally, last but not least, we have Sam Holliday, Regional Manager of the Federation of Small Business of South West of England, ex-editor of the Bath Chronicle. And Sam, I meant to ask you, how many members do you have of the Federation?
Nationally, we've got about 150,000. I don't know how many we've got these days. I think we've got several thousand in Gloucestershire alone.
Okay. I remember when I was chairman, it was 7,000 odd.
See,
I knew those figures, mate. I knew those figures.
Go.
Moving swiftly on. We're going to do something a little bit at the end, a little bit different as well. Because it's April the 4th, I thought we'd try something. We'd do a truth and lies, where each of the guests must tell a truth or lie, and the others must guess whether they're telling the truth or lie. It's only a 5-minute segment at the end. I thought it'd be a little bit of fun. Anyway, that's what my script says I wrote. Let's share the screen. Let's see what the headlines are this morning. Okay, here we go. We have the Daily Mirror. April Cruel Day. That's the cost of living. The Guardian, millions rush to minimise energy bills on eve of bleak Friday. The Eye, anger at Sunaka's cost of living crisis hits home. The Metro, snow joke. Who'd believe it? Yesterday it was snowing. I thought that's typical, isn't it? The magazine's coming out. We'll start delivery very soon and it starts snowing. The Sun, pain in the gas. The Financial Times, Biden orders record oil stockpile release in effort to quell fuel costs. The Daily Mail, Andrew in 755 scam case mystery. I love the way they lay into the royals, don't they? The Daily Telegraph, Duke took 1 million from Turkish fraudster. The Times, don't back down, Ukraine urged. The Daily Express, house prices surged £33,000 in a year. It's a story we've got today on Punchline. And the Daily Star, apocalypse now. Egg shortage threatens our biscuits and cakes. You just love the Daily Star. Right, let's start with that. Talking about irrelevance. Sam, thank you for joining Punchline Talks.
It was a pleasure.
What have you picked out for us, sir?
Well, looking at your front pages, I think it's quite interesting because when I've been an editor in 3 different places, in Walsall, in the West Midlands, in Tamworth and in Bath. And as editors, you probably spend 10 times as much time thinking about the front page as the rest of the paper because it's your window to the world. So today I followed that actual ethos and I normally bring the Times and the Eye because they're my favourite 2 papers here, but I've chose the Mirror because I think it's brilliant. I think it sums up how a lot of people feel about today. April Cruel Day. I mean, it basically says energy bills up, council tax up, thanks, John, national insurance up, water bills up, stamps up, broadband charges up. And you think there's other things on top of that, and there are. And if you go in, you can find even more things that are actually all rising today. And this is quite a momentous day in many ways. And I think, you know, a lot of the people watching this will either be business owners or work for business. And for particularly smaller businesses, the costs they incur, they get a very, very small profit margin. But they're also got their own personal lives. So you imagine if you run a very small factory or you run a very small office, you're going to be facing all these costs today on your ever shrinking profit levels. You're going to go home and face all these costs at home as well. And so it's almost like a double whammy. And even the point where, and it is good news, it really is, that the national minimum wage has gone up today, which is fantastic because a lot of people at the lower end are really going to need every penny they can get. But that's another cost on top for the small business owner. So one way or another, and all the papers have covered it, as you can see from those front pages, this is the least funny April Fool's Day I could ever remember, you know, because we're all going to get hit with some very, very serious costs. And I think all the papers covered it well, but I really thought that summed it up perfectly in the Mirror. So today's April Fool's Day, sadly.
And of course, the national insurance contribution has gone up as well, which is really a tax on business. And I totally agree with you. While the minimum wage has gone up, it's a massive cost for businesses. Absolutely, especially coffee shops, hospitality, and the other thing you didn't mention, if you don't mind, I do, was the 20% VAT back on the hospitality trade as well. So that
a lot of the things that were brought in through COVID, you know, to support landlords, to support all kinds of people, come to an end today. So I think today's just the start of what could be a very painful spring, summer for a lot of businesses and individuals.
I think there's a piece in the Times today about a cucumber farmer who hasn't actually replanted his crop because of the cost of energy to heat his greenhouses. So he's actually decided not to go ahead. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. Thanks ever so much for that, Sam. I thought that was brilliantly done. John, let's come to you then, please. So what have you picked out from the press?
Morning, Mark. I mean, it's sort of linked to what Sam was talking about. I mean, I was one of those ones struggling to get my energy readings, meter readings loaded up yesterday with the website constantly crashing. But and there was some interesting stuff in the eye on page 12 about how different countries in the EU are trying to subsidize fuel prices and stuff like that. But the main article sort of linked to that is about the cost of energy. There were several articles actually. So page 11 of the eye was talking about solar panels, and it was talking about it in connection with human rights, because half of all the solar panels in the world apparently come from the Uyghur region of China. So this article was talking about how we're building solar farms, you know, being built on Chinese genocide. But it did get me thinking. I mean, we talk a lot in Gloucestershire about green jobs, about the green jobs growth, and that's where we've got to sort of focus our efforts. And that got me thinking. And then there was another article about in the Times on page 19 about the cost of heat pumps. The overall lifetime cost of heat pumps is now the same as a gas boiler for the first time ever. And this article talks also later on in the Times on page 29, there's a talk about how we need to increase onshore wind farms. And all of this is just getting me thinking, although this is all absolutely awful for individuals and households at the moment, there's got to be a real opportunity for Gloucestershire and everywhere else in terms of green jobs. You know, why are we not manufacturing more solar panels in this country? Why are we not, if heat pump lifetime cost is now the same as a gas boiler, we should be really hitting that big time to save people money. And then there's this whole issue, which as a council, we have to deal with as in terms of our planning committees, which is about onshore wind. The government does tend to flip-flop between whether it likes onshore wind or not, but it seems to me that it does have to be part of our energy mix in the future. I'd be interested to know what others on the panel think, but I think there's a real opportunity here to actually, rather than just talking about green jobs, we've actually got to do something about it and really push ahead and find more diverse sources of energy to heat our homes. So
what's your view then, John, on the sort of tidal estuary power sources that they're on about at the moment? You know, they talked recently about tidal lagoons. The latest one is about the Severn Estuary.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think it's really exciting. I mean, you know, I was born in London, and the Thames has got a barrier and does a lot of stuff in terms of energy. If we can do it on the River Thames, surely we can do it on the River Severn.
Now, I thought you lined up Simon Hewer really well. They're obviously from Hewer FM. That's what they do. They're into heating and plumbing. Simon, have you seen a big rise in sort of heat pumps and stuff like that in your industry?
Firstly, good morning. I mean, I was obviously very interested listening to John and Sam, really. I mean, I think one of the biggest issues we're facing as a business and as a country, if not the planet, is the availability of A, the product, and B, people to fit it. As a company, we've become so frustrated about trying to recruit people. We've now formed our own training facility using our current renewable energy engineers to up-train some of our electricians and gas engineers. There are courses available, but they're very few and far between, and trying to get on them is more than difficult and expensive. It doesn't matter where you look at the minute, trying to get hold of anything in the construction industry is difficult, but when you talk about renewables and where they come from and the component parts, you know, it's it is tough. I mean, it's definitely, John says, it's definitely where we need to go. I think air source heat pumps, I've got one being installed at my own house. We're supporting a lot of our clients. All of a sudden, there's a big move. There's a little bit of government funding, which is helping. It's going to be a massive future, yeah, for sure.
But surely, I think with what's happened in Ukraine and Russia and obviously China flexing its muscles as well, maybe it's by time a lot of this industry is brought back to the UK and brought back to the West. We've been buying cheap labour for too long. And maybe this whole thing of buy it now, throw it away tomorrow, that time has gone. Simon, just very quickly, did you pick out a couple of stories for us?
Well, I did. I as I said to you, I had a few problems trying to actually get hold of a newspaper, but I did go online and find an interesting article which I've read previously, which is in the Express online, in relation to the P&O ferries plan where they've axed their 800 jobs. And I just noted in the news this morning that they've rehired 30 of those staff now to train the new staff. And I just thought, what great corporate suicide I thought it was, because although as a business, I'm sure they're going to save a lot of money, but are they not surely at risk of losing everything? I mean, they're going to lose the public, the customers. I was just amazed at the decision-making process of a business like that. And I wonder where it ends. You know, I just wonder where that's going to end up. And so that was the article I picked up on. And I just thought, you know, commercially, financially, it's probably the right thing to do. But surely within a business, it's more than just that. I mean, you obviously got to survive in business, but if you can't take your people and your customers with you, then what business have you actually got? So I thought that was a poor decision. And the only other thing, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's great, Simon. We're going to move on if it's okay. Because
I think the only other thing, I was just going to touch back onto something that John mentioned about the websites. I popped round to see my mum's 89th birthday yesterday. My dad's 90th later this month. And I popped round to see them. They both got COVID, both quite poorly. And what were they stressing about? Trying to get their meter reading uploaded onto a website. And they were getting quite stressed about it. And that's just two people of, you know, probably millions who were worried, you know, and quite rightly. So sign of the times.
Okay, no, thanks ever so much. Thanks ever so much for that, Simon. Okay, Chris, great to have you on the show again, mate. Nice to see you. What have you picked out for us, please?
Right, well, it's a story that probably 2 or 3 years ago, if I'd have read it, I thought would have been an April Fool. But given what's going on in the world, I think we know that there's a serious undertone to it. A number of papers are reporting that we're weeks away from running out of eggs. Interestingly, due to the cost of chicken feed, fuel, livestock, and problems caused with the Ukraine and what have you. And that really links back to a lot of the stories that we've been seeing. I mean, there was a story running Punchline, Mark, about the cost of fertiliser going up from £200 to £1,000. Anyone who's got friends involved in building knows that steel has gone up in cost as well. So it's an interesting story, which when you first look at, you think, is that really true? Can that really be happening? But we all know that the raw materials that are needed to produce these things are going to be costing more money and going to be adding to the cost of the product that we buy. Totally support that we should be growing our own, should be doing what we can to produce things here. But we've got to look at the fact that for a lot of the farmers and for a lot of the manufacturers, the raw material cost that is there is far higher than it was before. And they've got to look at potentially pushing up their prices as a result as well. So interesting story that caught my eye. As I said, I would have thought it would have been an April Fool a number of years ago, but sadly it looks true.
Now, isn't it funny you mentioned that one, because obviously we ran a story yesterday about this massive solar farm just on the outskirts of Stroud, 350 solar panels across 2 different fields. Surely we need those fields to grow things. You can't just put everything. Why aren't we putting solar panels on top of industrial units? Why aren't they all facing a certain way, or houses have to be built a certain way to maximize the sunlight, you know, hitting the roofs? Why isn't that sort of thing happening? I don't get it myself, but surely it's not that difficult to do.
There's some even more basic things, Mark. You know, in London, they painted the top of all the buses white to reflect the heat. You know, why aren't we doing that on every bus in the country?
Yeah, again, simple things, but it could make a massive difference. A bit like they were all saying, let's turn down the thermostat just by 1%, by one click, and it would have a massive impact on the Russian economy. Chris, did you pick out one last one before we move back?
I did. Well, they always say we should learn from history, and I can remember my dad telling me when bank cards were coming in, he said, "Oh, you've always got to pay with cash because then you know how much you're spending." And there's an interesting article in the Daily Mail, which is basically saying one of the knock-on effects that we've had of COVID is people have moved away from cash and everything's now paid with by card. And of course, they've increased the contact limit for cards up to £100, which is frightening when you think, within 10 clicks, you can spend £1,000, no problem at all. And there's interestingly a study which has now come back and it's reported in the Daily Mail, which says people are spending more money without necessarily realizing it. Because as you go through and you buy your ticket in London for the Underground now, you don't really pay attention in terms of whether it's £3.50, £5.50 or £8.50. You just tap your card and the money's left your account. And they're basically saying with this move away and people becoming not necessarily blasé with it, but not really appreciating how much they're spending when you actually have to count out the old pound notes as they used to do. So interesting one, as I said, harks back to what my dad told me as well. And that, when you've got cash in your pocket, you're more aware of what you're spending.
Totally agree. And that's why I've got a little cash in my box.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. One of the things I picked out for the papers, there's some funny things in the papers, actually, just keep it on a lighter note. There was this one in the Sun, maths loving fish can count up to 5. And the heading is, Sam would appreciate this, it is brain sturgeon. Anyway. Right, let's move on to our own individual sectors. Sam, what's it like for small businesses then at the moment? You touched on it there about the cost of living. I mean, I personally feel it's going to be a dog's dinner coming into this next 18 months.
I think so. And I just, it's just so frightening because how many times did we talk on this group or every conversation we ever had with anybody that once we get COVID out of the way, then things will look a bit better? Well, it really hasn't. I mean, the day that the final COVID restrictions ended in this country was the day that Putin went into Ukraine. And that has had a massive impact on business. Not directly, people don't all deal with Russia or Ukraine, but all these things that we're talking about are related. I mean, Chris made a point about eggs, and I'd picked out a story about how they should rise. And I was chatting to a couple of farmers last week, and one of them was saying to me, milk is the same as eggs, that there's going to be a real shortage on that. It's going to cost a lot more. And he also pointed about bread. Ukraine is described as the bread basket of Europe. It provides 25% of all the grain. And so they reckon only 10% of that is going to come through. So that is going to mean that there's going to be less grain, which means bread costs are going to go up. And the problem is we're all so used now to cheap food. We're all used to going to the Lidls and the Aldis and not expecting to see things go up. And I think it's a shock to the system. So this is all going to help. None of this is going to help small businesses. And small businesses who are all in the supply chains for this are really struggling. They don't have the power to be able to increase their costs. And another point that people seem to forget, and all the business people here will relate to this, if you're a small business, maybe you supply the Gloucester City Council and you've got a 2 or 3 year contract and you're delighted, that secures your business for 2 or 3 years. You're stuck with that price for 3 years. So if you signed something 12 months ago to provide something, and now say if you're providing concrete or something and you're building things for the council, all that concrete is now going to cost you 50% more. You can't go to John or his colleagues and say you want to increase your costs. It simply won't happen. And we really are worried as an organisation, just when we thought we'd got through COVID and so many businesses have survived COVID and we're so looking forward to getting over that hump, that we're now going to face a genuine cost of living impact, which could see businesses fall. So, you know me, Mark, I'm like you. I'm very much a half glass full. I'm a very positive person. But it's hard to find much positivity out there at the moment. And that's all the conversations I have with small businesses leads me in that direction. So I'd like to say otherwise, but I agree with you. Dog's dinner probably sums it up.
And the worst thing of all, behind every small business is the family. And if these businesses go under, you're talking marriages, you're talking mental health, all sorts of other issues.
100%.
Okay, thanks ever so much, guys. Back over to you now, John. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. One of them was about the cyber attack that the City Council had. Obviously, you've had some serious problems there with the portal, haven't you? And planning portal. Is that still being sorted out, or is that done now?
I mean, the recovery work is months of work, Mark. It's a horrendous thing to be hit by a cyber attack, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's you know, I mean, I praise my staff because they've been amazing in trying to find workarounds. Within a week of being hit, you know, I had some people from the planning team who'd managed to find a way of turning Microsoft Teams into a planning case management system. So you know, the staff have been brilliant, but it's been tiring, and you know, we're still on the route to try and improve you know, our services and bring them back to normality. It is going to take months, Mark.
Okay, but let's talk on the positive side. I was down at King Square the other day, and it's looking great. It's all the lights. I saw you there, by the way. I'm very sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you, John. I was too busy doing interviews with everybody else and trying to film here and run around all over the place. Got a few nice scoops, but it is looking great. It is. So the positive date for your diaries is Saturday, the 30th of April. That's going to be when we're going to have the big opening launch event for King Square. There's going to be, I don't want to reveal too much, but there'll be circus activities going on and a grand opening and things like that. And it is also a home Gloucester versus Bath match. So we'll try and see if we can get the square lit up in cherry and white as well. That sounds absolutely fantastic. And have you sorted out those pesky chairs that are facing Iceland? You're going to flip them around for us? I'm told that thanks to feedback from a valuable source, Mark, we're going to turn those chairs around so that they're facing inwards into the square. Fantastic. The power of Punchline. Exactly. Right, we go over to Simon. Simon, tell us a little bit more about Hewers, please.
Right, yeah, of course. Hewer has been in Gloucester. It's 57 years, Mark. I know you were struggling with the math earlier, but it's 57 years since my father, David Hewer, set the business up in 134 Seymour Road. It was set up in the garden shed. And we progressed from Seymour Road to Stride Road, and then premises in Melbourne Street and Treadworth, and then Hatherley Road, and now we're at Waterwells. As you mentioned earlier, we employ, it's actually nearly 150 staff now, very much a large family business. And I think that is a lot about the glue that holds us together as a business is obviously the people within it, which is why when I mentioned the P&O story, I thought, well, you know, if we lost the goodwill of our staff, of our people, I wouldn't have a business. So we do plumbing, heating and electrical, whether that's in your house at home or your offices or your new school or for the hospital. We did a huge amount of work with the NHS over the last 2 years. It's been a tough couple of years through COVID, obviously. It's been tough for us. But as mentioned earlier on by John and Sam, you know, we were coming out of COVID, a lot of positivity, you know, getting back to it properly. And obviously what's happening in the world at the moment is making that more difficult, but lots of good news still coming. What was the biggest thing you learned during COVID, Simon? What's the biggest lesson you learned? I think the biggest lesson really was about relationships with our staff, relationships with our clients, and our suppliers, and being tight and working well together. It was surprising. I was extremely proud of what we were able to achieve by working closely together. And I think that was like those relationships, I think was probably the biggest lesson. It also taught us as a business that we can work from home. If you'd asked me that 2 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. Our new normal is people work 2 or 3 days a week from home. You know, it is working really well. And it's providing people with a better work-life balance, which makes work a better thing to be doing, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's yeah. I totally agree with you. I've just closing my office, the old fire station, and moving home. And this is where it's going to be from now on. Okay, thanks ever so much for that, Simon, and congratulations. I know you're doing a bit of a shindig for your dad as well. Yeah, so Dad's a quick plug. Yeah, Dad's going to be 90 on the 22nd of April. We're having an open office on the 27th of April, and what we're looking to do is reach out to customers or suppliers or staff who you know my father may have dealt with, and invite them to come and join us for a sandwich and a cup of tea, and maybe a walk down memory lane. So Dad will be in the office with Mum, and we're going to have a little bit of a celebration.
Can 4 freeloaders turn up as well? Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. We'd be privileged to have you.
I'm talking about the others, not me. that leads very nicely over to my friend Chris. Chris, thanks ever so much for joining us. Chris, tell us about Tayntons, because things are changing, aren't they? The law, family law.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, after a much promised change, which got delayed because of COVID, etc., whilst the government focused on other things, as of the 6th of April, we've now got the non-blame ground for divorce coming in. And effectively what that means is people who are getting divorced from that date no longer have to accuse the other of adultery or unreasonable behaviour or wait for periods of separation. They can simply go down the non-blame ground. It's encouraged to try and make the whole divorce process far more amicable. So it's going to be a big sea change, really, in terms of the way that the divorce process works. What we're hoping to see, as I said, is it's going to take out that sting that often happens right at the start of the divorce process, where one party's having to blame the other for a breakdown in the marriage, and instead enable matters to be a bit more amicable and for the focus to really be on the resolution of finances and on children as well. Very much needed, I think. I think we've got quite an old, or have had quite an old-fashioned system of divorce in England for some time, England and Wales. Referring to phrases such as adultery in the year 2022 sounds very old-fashioned as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, it's going to be a big change, and one which we hope is going to be a benefit to clients, really.
Will that speed up the whole process then? Or is it still a...
I'm going to speed up the process. There's still a fixed period in terms of how long these divorces are going to take from the time that you issue to the time that you get your conditional order, which has replaced what used to be called decree nisi, has to be 20 weeks. And there's still a cooling off period in between that and decree absolute, or the final order as it's now called. But I think what it's going to do is it's hopefully going to make the process far easier for the parties. So they're not going to feel like they're living through a tunnel with no light at the end of it whilst the divorce process is going on. It's going to encourage far more amicable discussions and a sort of mutual approach, really. You can even look to jointly file a divorce petition, which again is going to be revolutionary, as opposed to where it used to be one party was always taking the lead and therefore could be perceived as being the trigger, if you like, in terms of the process.
And this is obviously going to be better for children as well, because that's the heartbreaker. You know, I know when you get divorced, it's sad for everybody, but when children are involved, there's that extra layer, isn't it? Absolutely.
I mean, the more that you can do to remove the acrimony, the better, really, because sadly, no matter how we may try as parents and as adults to keep children away from things, they're very good at picking up on things. You know, they can see when their parents are upset. They can see when there's a stressful situation going on. And so certainly, it's not going to remove the stress entirely. It's still not going to be a nice thing to have to do. But to be able to do it on the basis of one party not being accused, I think it's going to be taking a totally different approach and allow people to just accept that in 2022, sadly, it is a case that marriages break down. And, there's no reason to make it more difficult than that, really.
Okay, just very quickly, I know that your kids played a trick on you today, didn't they, for April Fools?
They did. Yeah, I was slightly late joining the call. I was told that our dog, God bless him, had been outside and brought a rat in, and that rat was currently lying prone on my bed. So it took me a good couple of minutes to realise that, no, this is April Fool. I don't need to go running upstairs and start shouting at the dog, bless him.
Love it. Thanks ever so much for that. Okay, let's quickly get to what's caught your eye in this week's Punchline, if that's okay. Sam, what's caught your eye in this week's Punch, please?
Well, I was sorry to hear Simon's parents are both suffering from COVID, and I hope they get better in time for the big shindig. But it kind of illustrates a piece that we contributed towards it in Punchline this week about we were supposed to be doing an event along with the Department of International Trade and the NFU about export at Cirencester, and we had to cancel it because half the speakers went down with COVID. And I think it's kind of going under the radar a little bit, just how many people have got it. And I say that because the last couple of weeks, 8 members of my family have had it, including myself. and only one of us reported it, we realised. So that means that 7 people didn't get reported. So all those figures you're seeing at the moment about how many people got COVID, it's way higher than that. And it affects business because some people have to self-isolate because they're poorly. Some people have to self-isolate because they work with vulnerable people. So business, on top of all of the things we're talking about, you're suddenly finding people missing from the office again, or the factory, or events like ours were cancelled. So I was quite pleased in a way that went into Punchline, because it kind of reminded people that COVID hasn't gone away and it's still affecting business. Excuse me, still affecting me, still affecting business. So thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thanks so much. John, what's caught your eye in this week's Punch?
Well, just picking up our previous conversation, Mark, the article about cybercrime during the pandemic cost UK businesses 2.4 billion caught my eye for obvious reasons. We got a Gloucester-based company called Farsos that did some analysis of data and thought it's at least 2.4 billion, could be even higher. It's just an ever-present factor in everyone's lives now, is having to deal with cyber criminals. I don't think it's particularly related to Ukraine, but we've just got to be ever vigilant, and it's one of those there but for the grace of God go I moments, because no matter what mitigations you put in place, there's always a risk that they'll get through.
Fantastic business, that Farsos. A lot of people don't realise it's tucked away there on Southgate Street, and hundreds of staff work there, and internationally recognised as one of the cyber companies and hosting companies in the world. You know, it really is quite astounding. Thanks ever so much for that. John, Simon, what have you picked out, please?
I picked up there were 2 really which caught my eye. One was the story about Gilman's, another fantastic local family business, and their expansion into new premises in Exeter. And I thought that was great news. E.G. Carter, again, another very well established local business. I think that's 4 generations. And it made me think about family businesses. And I think sometimes people on the outside, I think perhaps Sam may have had more insight. Obviously, Chris is within a relatively small business, but the price that sometimes gets paid by family business, I think sometimes people think it's a silver spoon, which it can be. But the other side of it, when you get home from a day's work and your dad's the boss and he's giving you a grilling about, why that job didn't get finished. And then when you do have a Sunday lunch, what do you talk about? The common thread is the business. So you never escape from the family business. So I was really excited for Gilman's. Great news, great business, and celebrating a number of great family businesses in Gloucestershire. I think I'd love to do a big interview about that and really drill about that side of your side, Simon. I think we could get a couch and a chair. I was fired 4 times and I resigned twice. Good story. I think I'd love to do that loads of times. I've fired myself here at Punchline. No, thanks so much, Simon. Chris, what have you caught your eye in this week's Punchline, please?
So it was an article that was in yesterday's Punchline. I think what we've all established today is that we all need time to be able to get out and reflect and get away from the businesses or get away from the pain of the bills, etc. And the article that caught my eye was the Cotswold Canals project, which you did yesterday. I certainly like getting out and about, walking and what have you. I find it's great to sort of be able to de-stress. I think it's fantastic that this is a project which is gradually taking shape. We're going to be able to get those canals back connected. You can walk along the footpath, etc. We live in a beautiful part of the world, and it's fantastic that these little things that have been on our doorstep and been neglected for so long are now starting to come back, and everyone's going to be able to enjoy them. So more of those, please, as far as I'm concerned.
And I'm a member of the Canals and Rivers Trust, actually, because I spend so much time walking up and down it. I pay my £10 a month, and it's worth every single penny. Anyway, right, okay, we're going to do something a little bit different. First of all, I'd like to thank our guests for a fantastic input on that. But we're going to do something a little bit different because it's April Fool's Day. What I did was ask everybody to write a truth or a lie on a piece of paper, and we're going to quickly whip around to find out what their story is. So the first one is, I'm going to do myself first, okay? I once tried to land an aeroplane on a tropical island runway between a line of coconut trees after only 1 flying lesson. John, is that a truth or a lie?
Knowing you, Mark, that's true.
Sam?
100% true.
Simon?
True.
What do you say? True? Can't read it. True.
True.
Chris, truth or lie?
Well, I'll be different because I stand a chance of winning then, don't I? I'll go lie.
Right, we'll come to that at the very end. Okay, thanks very much. So, Sam, what have you picked out? What's your truth or lie?
Well, I used to be a bit heavier than I am now, and I used to be slightly blonder. And in that time, I once came second in a Boris Johnson lookalike competition.
Okay, John, is that a true? I'll say that's a true. John?
Yeah, I think that's true, isn't it?
Simon?
I'm going to say that's a lie. That's false.
That's a lie. Okay. Chris, what do you reckon? True or false?
I'd say true on that. I'd say true.
True. Okay, that's very good. Thank you very much. John, what's yours?
So some years ago, I was fortunate enough to be invited to a Christmas party at the Treasury. Unfortunately, I had a bit too much to drink at the party and I got lost in this huge building. I ended up punching the security guard and climbing out of a window to get out of the building.
Right. Sam, what do you reckon?
I was with him because I once got drunk at number 10 by mistake until he punched a security guard. He's far too mild-mannered a man to do that.
Okay.
False.
Simon?
I think I'm going to go false.
False. Okay. Lie. Chris?
Yeah, I'd say that's a lie.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to go for truth. I can't imagine you punching someone in the. I just can't imagine you doing that, John. You're far too much of a pro, mate. Anyway, back to it. Right. Okay, Simon, what's yours?
Okay, so I once modelled and walked the catwalk for a local fashion shop.
Okay. Right. Okay. Chris, truth or lie?
Well, Simon's very sartorial elegant, so I definitely think that's true. I'm sure.
I think, yeah. Sam?
Looking at what the rest of us are wearing and looking like, it's definitely true.
John?
I'll go different and say false.
You say it's false. I reckon it's true. I reckon. I can imagine you waltzing.
Almost looks as good as Dale Vince in the Times today. Looks like James Bond. Everyone should look at it. Page 3 of the Times today. It's amazing.
What do I think? I think it's going to be. I reckon that's definitely true. Okay, Chris, your truth or lie, sir?
Yeah. So when I met my wife, which I will emphasise was 26 years ago, and I was a lot lighter. I was a member of the. I know. I was a member of the Crunchy Wing Walker team.
The what? Sorry.
The Crunchy Wing Walker team, based at the Cotswold Airport.
Okay, Simon, is that true or false?
That's definitely true.
That's true. Okay, Sam.
I think it's probably true.
True. Okay, John.
I'll say false again.
False. Okay. I reckon that's true as well. I reckon that's true. Okay, well, we'll start with you, Chris. Is that true or a lie?
Well, disappointingly, it's a lie. But my wife was. That's how I met her at the time. She was wing walking.
She was wing walking. I can imagine you doing that. Okay, Sam, were you a fashion model walking down?
No. I was a Boris Johnson lookalike apparently, because a lot of people used to say that, and actually it was false. I never took part in Boris, but people did used to say I look like Boris Johnson. So there you go.
I can imagine that. Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. So were you a fashion model?
I did walk the catwalk once as a fashion model.
I can imagine you doing that.
Yeah, apparently, Mark, I didn't have what it took, I'm afraid. That was my only...
Simon, I think that was one of your alternative jobs when you got sacked by your dad.
It was.
John, did you once punch a security guard at number 10?
I was at the Treasury, Mark, but I'm afraid I've really disappointed your all opinions on me because it was I must admit, I was so drunk. I don't know if I hit him, but I definitely threw a punch at him. Very good. And as for myself, did I land an aeroplane? Tried to land an aeroplane after one flying lesson in Belize. Yes, I did. I think they call that vodka. So that's the truth. Anyway, thanks ever so much, my fantastic panel, for joining us at Punchline Talks today. Hopefully, we'll see you next week. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Hayeswoods, and we'll see you all next week. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe.